we're very lucky. I don't know if it's the disease or Sam's personality, but Sam is an incredibly happy child in general. He's always smiling and he makes it easy for us.
My name is S.A.M.
This is our son Sam, and he's now 7, but at 2 he was diagnosed with a very rare brain disease called Vanishing White Matter Disease, or VWM for short.
Vanishing White Matter Disease is part of the family of diseases called leukodystrophies, which affect the white matter in the brain. The white matter is like a layer of insulation that goes over the brain and essentially forms a linkage between the brain and the central nervous system, and therefore the rest of the body. And with vanishing white matter, the issue is that white matter degrades over time, it deteriorates and ultimately disappears.
He can't stand up by himself, he can't walk, he hops to get around, so he needs help with everything. Before he was 2, he was completely normal, or so we thought. And then at 2, he was playing on our bed and fell off onto 2 layers of carpet and was completely unresponsive for about 30 seconds. But then he woke up and he seemed okay. He cried for a few minutes but didn't seem to be any pain. And then we stood you up, and you collapsed. And so we were living in London at the time, and we called 911. They just sent him home and said it's probably a hip sprain and come back in a few weeks if he doesn't get better. So after about 6 weeks of going back and saying something's not right, and then they did a CAT scan, and then as soon as they did the CAT scan, they knew right away that there was something very wrong. They told us that he had this incredibly rare brain disease called Vanishing White Matter Disease, and there's less than 250 cases worldwide, and there's no treatment, and there's no cure, and there's essentially nothing we can do. And it's terminal, and we were going to have to watch him lose all motor control, and then he would pass away, and we don't know how long he would have.
And at that point, we went from being a perfectly normal family to being a family with a terminally sick kid. And it was like almost overnight. So I think it was one of the first times in our life where we'd come up against a problem which there was seemingly no solution. We just got lucky that the doctor that we had been working with had recognized one case of this disease before, and she knew what it was.
We started the foundation because there just wasn't a place in the US to legitimately raise money for VWM. Again, there's so few cases that there wasn't a charity designated to raise money within the US for these research projects. And so we decided that we would start it. And then last summer, there's a leukodystrophy conference every year. The doctor and researcher who were doing the research were both there, and both had told us that they had made real progress. They both have identified compounds that they think could stop the progression of the disease. It is still very early stages, but it was the first time we had any real hope at all, because it was the first time we'd ever heard that they had made progress. But then there's always a catch. Being 250 cases worldwide, there's no funding. So for both projects, one is being entirely funded by families. So now we're in the situation where we're trying to raise $2 million to make sure that both of these projects are fully funded.
So we decided that the foundation would support the research, it would raise awareness, but it would also, when and where necessary, it would support these families to make their lives a little bit easier as well.
And with any luck, at the end of it, we'll have a treatment. And it really is a race against time, though, because these drugs will stop the progression of the disease, but the damage that's been done for all of the kids can't be reversed. But it's getting the treatment as quickly as we can to make sure that the damage is minimized and we can save as many kids as possible.
We didn't know whether he had 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, but it was a case of then just making the most of the time we had with him. And that has fundamentally changed our approach to life, fundamentally changed our priorities and our perspective and what's important. We just get up and try and make the most of every day. Yeah.
It's a genetic condition, which means that both Nick and I have a recessive gene. So all of our children have a 25% chance of having this disease. Because the disease is so unusual in that a bump on the head or a fever causes a sudden decline, that means that they would have to change their lifestyle drastically should they be diagnosed. We consciously decided we needed to make an effort to be together as a family because we just didn't know how much time we would have as a family of 5. We don't know what the future holds. We can't control it. It's allowed us to just focus on today. And it's allowed us to also feel the joy in the moment. I feel like before, in hindsight, you used to be like, oh, actually, that was a really good time. But at the time, you're so stressed that you're not appreciating it. And I feel like we're now able to appreciate it because we're able to see it for what it is when it's happening.
I think that element of perspective is really important because on the day we got Sam's diagnosis, you think that the world's fallen in and you're the most unlucky person in the world. And then quite quickly after that, we realized that actually that's not the case. As Alison said so well, you focus on the important things, you spend time together as a family, you make sure you're keeping things in that perspective.
And then obviously now that this promising research has come around, we've decided that we needed to ramp up the fundraising. We need to actually be very active about trying to raise this money so that we can fund these projects and continue to support the families. We have no control over the future. We are going to try and find a treatment for Sam. We are going to try and fund the treatment for Sam, but there's no guarantee. So we have to make the most of today.